Okay, so it is Thursday, June 15th at 2 o'clock, your last Thursday of elementary school. In a couple of hours, it's going to be the drive-through graduation and optional picnic afterwards. You can bring your own food, you can bring your family, you can bring your pets, I don't care. And we're going to set up the tables, I think, just right behind us so that while we're greeting people, you can go and have your picnic and decorate your shirt, and we can chat and you can greet people as they drive by. In the meantime, we're going to read a couple more chapters of Thief of Always. I'm hoping to finish by tomorrow. We just have a little bit left to go. Poor Harvey is in the house. He's feeling pretty brave. He's conquered several of the monsters, and he's realized that Mr. House is the house, that he is the house itself. So we are to chapter 21, Tricks and Temptations. Ooh, and look at the picture is of some giant, horrible looking, alas, it says. Has compass. So here we go. The Thief of Always, chapter 21. You've done well, said the smiling face awaiting him at the top of the stairs. I wondered where you'd gone to, Harvey said to Rictus. Always ready to serve, came the unctuous reply. Really, said Harvey, stepping down off the chair and approaching the creature. Of course, said Rictus, always. Now that he was closer to the man, Harvey saw the cracks in the veneer. He was plastering on a smile and smothering his words in butter and honey, but it was the sour smell of fear that oozed from his sickly skin. You're afraid of me, aren't you? Harvey said. No, Rictus insisted. I'm respectful. That's all. Mr. Hood thinks you're a bright boy. He's instructed me to offer you whatever you want to make you stay. He spread his arms. The sky's the limit. You know what I want, said Harvey. And if you remember, what Harvey wants is his years back. He wants those 30 years back. I'm starting to sense that the sense of like wasting time and not appreciating your life is like a theme of this book, huh? You can have anything but the years, thief. You can't have those. You won't even need them if you stay and become Mr. Hood's apprentice. You'll live forever, just like him. He dabbed at the sweat beads on his upper lip with a yellowed handkerchief. Think about it, he said. You might be able to kill the likes of Karna or me, but you'll never hurt Hood. He's too old, too wise, too dead. If I stayed, Harvey said. Rictus' grin spread. Yes, he purred. Would the children in the lake go free? What bother about them? Because one of them was my friend, reminded Harvey. You're thinking of little Lulu, aren't you? Rictus said. Well, let me tell you, she's very happy down there. They all are. No, they're not, Harvey raged. That lake's foul, and you know it. He took a step toward Rictus, who retreated as if in fear of his life, which perhaps he was. How would you like it, Harvey said, stabbing his finger in Rictus's direction, living in the cold and the dark? Ooh. You're right, said Rictus, raising his hands in surrender. Whatever you say. I say set them free now, Harvey replied, and if you won't, then I will. He pushed Rictus aside and started down the stairs 2 at a time. He didn't have a clue what he was going to do when he got to the lake. Fish were fish, after all, even if they'd once been children. If he tried to take them out of the lake, they'd surely drown in the air. But he was determined to somehow save them from Mr. Hood. Rictus came down after him, chattering like a clockwork salesman. What do you want? He said. Just imagine it, and it's yours. How about your own motorcycle? As he spoke, something gleamed on the landing below, and the sleekest motorcycle human eyes had ever seen popped into view. It's yours, my boy, Rictus said. No, thanks, Harvey said. Blame you, Rictus said, kicking the motorcycle over as he sailed past. How about books? Do you like books? But before Harvey could reply, the wall in front of him lifted like a great brick curtain, revealing shelf upon shelf of leather-bound volumes. The masterpieces of the world, Rictus said, from Aristotle to Zola. No? No, said Harvey, hurrying on. There's got to be something you want, Rictus said. They were now heading toward the final flight of stairs, and Rictus knew he didn't have very long before his prey was out in the open air. You like dogs, Rictus said, as a litter of puppies scampered up the stairs. Pick one. Heck, have them all. Harvey was tempted, but he stepped over them and on. Something more exotic, maybe, Rictus said, and a flock of brilliantly feathered parrots descended from the ceiling. Harvey waved them away. And as you're picturing, if you're picturing this part of the story, You'll realize this would make a really great movie. And I Googled it and they are going to make it into a movie, The Thief of Always. So you'll have to watch for that movie. Too noisy, huh? Said Rictus. You want something quiet and powerful? Tigers. That's what you want. Tigers. No sooner said than they padded into view in the hallway below. 2 white tigers with eyes like polished gold. Nowhere to keep them, Harvey said. That's practical, Rictus conceded. I like a practical kid. As the tigers bounded off, the telephone on the table beside the kitchen door began to ring. Rictus was down the flight in 2 springs and at the table in another 2. Listen to this, he said. It's the president. He wants to give you a medal. No, he doesn't, Harvey said, tiring of this rigmarole now. He was at the bottom of the stairs and crossing to the front door. You're right, said Rictus, ear to the phone again. He wants to give you an oil field in Alaska. Harvey kept walking. No, got that wrong. He wants to give you Alaska. Too cold. How about Florida? Too hot. Boy, you're a difficult guy to please, Harvey Swick. Harvey ignored him and turned to the handle of the front door. Rictus slammed down the phone and raced toward him. Wait up, he hollered. I'm not done yet. You've got nothing I want, Harvey said, hauling open the front door. They're all fakes. What if they are, said Rictus, suddenly hushed. So the sun's out there, you can still enjoy it. And let me tell you, it takes a lot of magic to conjure up all these shams and hoaxes. Mr. Hood's really sweating to find you something you like. Ignoring him, Harvey stepped out onto the porch. Mrs. Griffin was standing on the lawn with Stu Cat in her arms, squinting up at the house. She smiled when she saw Harvey emerge. I heard such noises, she said. What's going on in there? I'll tell you later, said Harvey. Where's Wendell? He wandered off, she said. Harvey cupped his hands around his mouth and yelled, Wendell, Wendell. His voice came back to him from the face of the house, but there was no reply from Wendell. It's a warm afternoon, said Rictus, idling on the porch. Maybe he went swimming. Oh, no, Harvey murmured. No, not Wendell. Please not Wendell. Rictus shrugged. He was a goofy little kid anyhow, he said. He'll probably look better as a fish. No, Harvey yelled up at the house. This isn't fair. You can't do this. You can't. Tears started to cloud his eyes. He wiped them with his fists. They were both useless. Fists and tears. He couldn't soften Hood's heart with weeping, and he couldn't bring down the house with blows. He had no weapon against the enemy, but his wits, and his wits were about at an end. Bum, bum, bah. And that's the end of that chapter. The next chapter, chapter 22, Appetite. And look at the picture. Weird picture. It's got the little boat. It's got some sort of weird crab thing. Oh dear. What is going to happen? Oh, to be a vampire again, Harvey thought, to have claws and fang and a hunger for blood upon him like the hunger he'd had at the distant Halloween, the hunger he'd turned from in disgust. He wouldn't turn from it now. Oh, he'd let the beast swell in him. Who's got there? Somebody's unmuted and making noise. Let's see. There we go. So he could fly in Hood's face with his hatred razor sharp, but he wasn't a beast. He was just a boy. It was the Vampire King who had the power, not him. And then as he stared up the house, he remembered something that Rictus had told him at the door. It takes a lot of magic to conjure up these shams and hoaxes, he'd said. Mr. Hood's really sweating to find you something you like. Maybe I don't need fangs to suck him dry, Harvey thought. Maybe all I need is wishes. I want to talk to Hood, he told Rictus. Why? Well, maybe there are some things I'd like, only I want to tell him about them personally. He's listening, Rictus said, glancing back toward the house. Harvey scanned the windows and the eaves, the porch, but there was no sign of any presence. I don't see him, he said. Yes, you do, he replied. Is he in the house? Harvey asked, staring through the open door. Haven't you guessed yet? Said Rictus. He is the house. And as he spoke, a cloud moved over the sun. The roof and walls darkened, and the entire house seemed to swell like a monstrous fungus. It was alive, from the eaves to the foundations, alive. Go on, Rictus said. Speak to him. He's listening. Harvey took a step toward the house. Can you hear me? He said. The front door swung a little wider, and a sighing breath from the top of the stairs blew a cloud of Jive's dust out onto the porch. "He can hear you," said Rictus. "If I stay," Harvey began. "Yes," said the house, making the words from creaks and rattles. "You'll give me anything I want?" "For a bright boy like you," came the reply, "anything." "You promise on your magic?" I promise, just say the word." "Well, for a start, yes." "I lost my ark." "Then you must have another, my lodestar," the house said. Bigger, better, and a board of the porch folded back as an ark 3 times the size of the first one rose into view. "I don't want lead animals," Harvey said as he walked toward the steps. "What then?" said Hood. "Gold, silver?" "Flesh and blood," Harvey replied. "Perfect little animals for my ark." "I like a challenge," Hood said, and as he spoke, tinny din of bellows and roars rose from the ark, and the little windows were flung open, and the doors flung wide, and 100 animals appeared, all perfect miniatures, tiny elephants, giraffes, hyenas, aardvarks, and doves. "Satisfied?" said Hood. Harvey shrugged. "It's okay, I suppose," he said. "Okay," said Hood. "It's a little miracle. So make me another ark, another miracle. What would you like?" Harvey turned his back on the Hood house and surveyed the lawn. The sight of Mrs. Griffin watching with puzzlement inspired the next request. "I want flowers," he said, "everywhere, and I don't want 2 alike." "What for?" asked the Hood house. "You said I could have whatever I wanted," Harvey replied. "You didn't say I had to give you reasons. If I have to do all, the fun goes out of it." "Oh, I wouldn't want that," the Hood house said. "You must have fun at all costs. So give me the flowers," Harvey insisted. The lawn began to tremble as though a minor earthquake were underway, and the next moment, countless shoots pressed up between the blades of grass. Mrs. Griffin began to laugh with delight. "Look at them, just look." It was quite a show. Tens of thousands of flowers bursting into blossom at the same time. Harvey could have named a few of them if he'd been quizzed: tulips, daffodils, roses, but most of them were new to him, species that only bloomed at night on the high Himalayas or on the wind-swept plateaus of Tierra del Fuego. Flowers with blooms as big as his head or as small as his thumbnail, blooms that stank like bad meat or smelled like the breeze from heaven itself. Even though he knew it was all an illusion, he was impressed and said so. "Looks good," he told the Hood house. "Satisfied?" it wanted to know. Was its voice a little weaker than it had been earlier, Harvey wondered. He suspected it was. He showed no sign of that suspicion, however. He simply said, "We're getting there." "Getting where?" said the Hood house. "Well," said Harvey, "I guess we'll know when we arrive." A low growl of irritation came from the house, shaking the windows. 1 or 2 slates slid from the roof and smashed on the ground below. "I'm going to have to be careful," Harvey thought. "Hood's getting angry." Rictus echoed that thought. "I hope you're not stringing Mr. Hood along," he warned, "because he doesn't like that kind of game." "He wants me happy, doesn't he?" Harvey said. "Of course. So how about something to eat? The kitchen's full." "I don't want pies," said Rictus. "I want roast swan and oysters and those little black eggs." "Caviar?" Hey, Eli, you're unmuted.
For some reason, someone's unmuting me.
There you go.
What?
Eli, stop. Okay. Caviar, Rictus suggested. Have you ever had caviar? By the way, if you're listening, Sasha, I did order those things from Amazon, and they're going to come on the weekend, and we're all going to be able to try them at the zoo. Ooh, yummy, yummy. What are they called again? Sea eggs or something? Sea grapes. Sea grapes. That's right. They're just a kind of seaweed. Okay, here we go. Caviar. That's what I want. I want caviar. Really, it's disgusting. I still want it, said Harvey, and frog's legs and horseradish and pomegranates. The meals were already appearing in the hallway, plate upon steaming plate. The smells were tantalizing at first, but the more dishes Harvey added, the more sick the mixture became. He began to exhaust his menu of real meals, so instead he started to make things up. I want crawfish cooked in cherry soda and horse steaks with jelly bean sauce and Boston cream cheese and pastrami soup. Wait, said Rictus, you're going too fast, but Harvey didn't stop. And pumpernickel stew and snail fudge and pigfoot clusters. Wait, the house howled. This time Harvey stopped. In the heat of his invention, he hadn't even looked to see if Hood was supplying him with all these things. But now he saw all the dishes he demanded piled so high in the hallway, they were threatening to fall over and float the ark on a noxious sea of sweet meat and stew. I know what you're doing, said the Hood house. Uh-oh, Harvey thought, he's on to me. He looked up from the feast at the door to the facade and saw that his plan to drain the house was indeed working. Many of the windows were cracked or broken. The doors were peeling and hanging from their hinges. The porch boards were twisted and blighted. "You're testing me, aren't you?" said Hood. His voice had never been melodious, but it was now uglier than ever. "Admit it, thief," he said. Harvey took a deep breath and then said, "If I'm going to be your apprentice, I need to know how powerful you are." "Are you satisfied?" the decaying house demanded. "Almost," Harvey said. "What more do you want?" it roared. What more indeed, Harvey thought. His mind was reeling with these ridiculous lists. "You may have one final gift, one final proof of my power. Then you must accept me as your master forever and ever. Agreed?" Harvey felt a tickle, a cold sweat run down his spine. He stared at the teetering house, his mind racing. What was left to demand? "Agreed," the house boomed. "Agreed," he said. "So tell me," it went on, "what do you want?" He looked at the tiny animals. What should he demand? One final request could break Hood's back, but what? What? A gust of chilly wind came from the direction of the lake. Autumn could not be far off, the seasons of dying things. "I know," he said suddenly. "Tell me," the house replied. "Tell me, and let's have this game over. I want your bright soul under my wing, little thief." "And I want the seasons," Harvey said. "All the seasons at once." "At once?" "Yes, at once. That's nonsensical. It's what I want. Stupid, imbecilic. It's what I want. You said one more wish, and that's it." "Very well," said the house. "I will give it to you, and when you have it, little thief, your soul is mine." And we are to chapter 23, The War of the Seasons. And here is the picture of this creepy dude with his creepy cat. I don't really know what that is, unless that's Harvey's father or mother.
If
But
they want to make
we are going to stop and we will finish the story tomorrow. Oh my gosh, it's so exciting.
if they actually do make a movie of that, it's probably going to be